She had nothing left but the cold concrete beneath her and the smell of grease from the restaurant's back door where she slept each night. 26 years old, invisible to the world, clutching a photograph of her dead mother and a restaurant lease that expired 3 years ago. The debt collectors had stopped calling. They'd already taken everything. But her ex-boyfriend hadn't stopped. He was still hunting her, still angry, still dangerous. And then, on the coldest night of January, a black Mercedes stopped in front of her cardboard shelter. The man who stepped out wore a coat that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. Korean, expressionless, surrounded by 3 men who moved like shadows. He looked at her the way someone looks at a ghost, like he'd seen her before, in another life, in another tragedy he couldn't prevent. He said only one thing: "You'll freeze to death here." She should have been afraid. She should have run. But when you have nothing left to lose, even danger looks like mercy. While I tell you this story, one that will make you feel many emotions, click the subscribe button. It's the only way to support us. And thank you. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, though no one had called her by name in months. The other servers at Ming's Diner called her the quiet one. The manager called her lucky to have this job. The customers didn't call her anything. They barely saw her at all. She worked the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 6 days a week, minimum wage plus tips that rarely exceeded $20 a night. She kept her head down, her hands moving, her thoughts buried somewhere deep where they couldn't hurt her anymore. When her shift ended, she didn't go home. She had no home. Instead, she walked 3 blocks west to the alley behind Giuseppe's, an Italian restaurant that had closed down 8 months ago. The building was condemned, waiting for demolition, but the back alcove still had an overhang that kept the rain off. She'd hidden a sleeping bag behind the dumpster, along with a plastic bin containing everything she owned: 2 changes of clothes, a toothbrush, her mother's recipe book, and a photograph. The photograph showed a woman with Sarah's eyes standing in front of a small restaurant with a hand-painted sign: Mitchell's Kitchen. Her mother's dream. Her mother's life. Her mother's death. It had been 4 years since the cancer took her. 3 years since the medical debt and funeral costs forced Sarah to sell the restaurant at a loss. 2 years since her ex-boyfriend, Marcus convinced her to take out loans in her name to invest in their future. 1 year since she discovered he'd gambled it all away and disappeared, leaving her with $60,000 in debt and threats from people who didn't accept excuses. She'd run, changed her number, avoided her old neighborhood, lived in her car until it was repossessed. Now she lived behind a dumpster. Tonight, like every night, she counted the tips from her apron pocket. $14. She bought a cup of ramen from the 7-Eleven and ate it sitting on the curb, watching the city refuse to sleep. Los Angeles never stopped. Even at 3 a.m., cars rushed past, sirens wailed in the distance, helicopters circled overhead. The city churned with life and violence and money, indifferent to the girl eating 25-cent noodles in the shadow of a broken streetlight. She prayed sometimes. Not formal prayers. She'd stopped believing in formal anything. Just whispers into the dark. Please, just let me disappear. Let me stop being afraid. But God, if he existed, seemed busy with more important people. She finished her ramen, stuffed the cup into the dumpster, and walked back to her sleeping bag. That's when she saw him. Marcus, standing at the mouth of the alley, backlit by the streetlight, hands in his pockets. He looked the same. Handsome in that dangerous way, with his slicked hair and leather jacket and smile that promised things he'd never deliver. Sarah's blood turned to ice. "There you are," Marcus said, his voice smooth. "I've been looking everywhere for you, baby." She didn't move. Couldn't move. He walked closer. "You think you can just ghost me? Disappear? You owe people, Sarah. Serious people." "I don't owe you anything," she whispered. "No, but you owe them. The guys I borrowed from. And they're tired of waiting." He stopped 3 feet away. "So here's the deal. You're gonna come with me. You're gonna work off what you owe. And if you're smart, you'll smile and say thank you." "Work it off how?" His smile widened. "There's a gentleman's club on 5th. They're always hiring. Pretty girl like you could clear your debt in a year, maybe 2. The world tilted. "No," Sarah said. "No." Marcus laughed. "You think you have a choice? Look at you. You're sleeping in an alley. You're nobody. You're nothing. You think you can tell me no. He reached for her arm. She jerked back, stumbling against the wall. Don't touch me. Or what? He grabbed her wrist, fingers digging in. You'll call the cops. With what phone? You'll run? To where? Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Let go of me. Not until you stop being stupid and... A voice cut through the alley, cold and calm and absolute. Let her go. Both of them turned. A man stood at the alley entrance. Korean, mid-30s, dressed in a black wool coat and tailored suit that seemed to absorb the streetlight. His face was carved from stone, emotionless, but his eyes, dark and sharp, locked onto Marcus like a predator sighting prey. Behind him, 3 other men materialized from the shadows, silent, waiting. Marcus released Sarah's wrist. This doesn't concern you, man. The Korean man tilted his head slightly. You're hurting her. She's my girlfriend. We're just talking. No, Sarah said, her voice shaking. No, I'm not. I'm not his anything. The man's gaze shifted to her for a brief moment, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or pain. Then he looked back at Marcus. Leave. Who the hell do you think you... One of the men behind him moved, just one step forward. It was enough. Marcus's bravado crumbled. He glanced at the men, at their stillness, at the way they stood like violence waiting to be unleashed. Whatever. Marcus muttered. This isn't over, Sarah. He backed away, then turned and walked quickly out of the alley. Silence fell. Sarah pressed against the wall, heart hammering, unable to process what had just happened. The Korean man approached slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Are you hurt? He asked. His English was perfect, barely accented. I'm fine. You're not fine. He stopped a respectful distance away. You're sleeping outside in January. You're being stalked by a man who wants to sell you. You're one bad night away from disappearing. She stared at him. How do you... I've been watching this alley for 3 weeks, he said simply. You sleep here every night. You eat ramen on the curb. You cry when you think no one can hear. Horror washed over her. You've been watching me. I've been seeing you. He corrected. There's a difference. What do you want? He studied her for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. I want to keep you from freezing to death. His name was Jin Dae-hyun, though she wouldn't learn that until later. For now, he was just the stranger in the expensive coat offering her something that sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. I have a guest house, he said, on my property in the hills, empty, climate-controlled, safe. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. Why would you do that? Does it matter? Yes. He seemed to consider this. Then, I don't like seeing people suffer when I can prevent it. You don't know me. I know enough. His voice remained calm, factual. Your name is Sarah Mitchell. You're 26. You work at Ming's Diner. Your mother died 4 years ago from pancreatic cancer. You had a restaurant, Mitchell's Kitchen, that went under. You have significant debt from a man named Marcus Chen, who borrowed from a loan shark named Tommy Vega. Her breath caught. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know things. Are you a cop? Something almost like amusement touched his eyes. No. Then what are you? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, Tommy Vega operates in Koreatown. He's small-time, but connected. If Marcus brings you to him, you won't leave. Do you understand what I'm telling you? She understood. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. So what are you offering? Protection. That's not free. No, Jin agreed. Nothing is free. But my price isn't what you're imagining. Then what? Live, eat, sleep somewhere warm. Let me make sure Marcus and his associates don't find you. In return, he paused. Be visible. She frowned. What? Attend dinners with me occasionally. Public events. Be seen. His expression remained unreadable. I need people to believe I have personal attachments. It complicates things for my enemies. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? I want you to accept protection and shelter. How it appears to others is strategic. That's insane. Perhaps? He pulled a business card from his pocket, held it out. Think about it. The address is on the back. If you change your mind, come tomorrow. After midnight, the gate code is 7 and 39. She didn't take the card. Why midnight? Because I'm rarely home before then. What do you do? Business. What kind of business? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The kind that allows me to protect people like you from people like Marcus. He set the card on top of her sleeping bag, then turned to leave. Wait, Sarah called. He paused. Why me? There are thousands of homeless people in LA. Why do you care about me specifically? For the first time, emotion cracked through his mask, just for a second, just enough for her to see something raw and wounded beneath. You remind me of someone I failed, he said quietly. Then he walked away, his 3 silent companions falling into formation behind him. They disappeared into the black Mercedes, and the car glided away like a shark through dark water. Sarah stood there for a long time, staring at the business card. It was black, with silver lettering, Jin Dae-hyun, Import-Export Consulting. Below that, a phone number. On the back, an address in the Hollywood Hills. She should have thrown it away. Should have run. Should have known that men like that, men who moved through the night with bodyguards and knew too much and offered salvation, were more dangerous than whatever they were saving you from. But the temperature was dropping. Her sleeping bag was thin. And Marcus would come back. Sarah picked up the card. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in her sleeping bag, watching the stars disappear behind clouds, turning the black card over and over in her hands. At 6 a.m., she went to work, poured coffee, took orders, smiled when required. Her body moved on autopilot while her mind ran through scenarios. If she went to Jin Dae-hyun's house, she'd be putting herself in the hands of a stranger, a powerful stranger, a man who had her investigated without her knowledge. If she didn't go, Marcus would return. And next time, Jin Dae-hyun wouldn't be there to stop him. During her break, she Googled Jin Dae-hyun on the library computer. Nothing. She tried at Jin Dae-hyun Los Angeles. Still nothing. Jin Dae-hyun Import-Export. One result. A business registration filed 3 years ago. No website, no social media, no photos, ghost. She tried the address. Google Maps showed a gated property in the hills. Satellite view obscured by trees. Sarah closed the browser. Her shift ended. She collected her $14 in tips, bought ramen, sat on the curb. It was January 15th, the coldest night of the year so far. Meteorologists predicted temperatures in the low 40s, deadly for someone sleeping outside without proper shelter. Sarah looked up at the hills, where warm houses glowed like distant stars. She made her decision. At 12:30 a.m., she stood in front of a massive iron gate built into a stone wall. The gate was modern, electronic, intimidating. Beyond it, a driveway curved up through manicured landscaping toward a house she couldn't fully see. She punched in 7739. The gate opened silently. Sarah walked up the driveway, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her heart trying to escape her chest. The main house came into view, a sprawling modern structure of glass and steel, lit from within. Expensive cars sat in the circular driveway. The Mercedes, a Range Rover, a Lexus. Before she reached the front door, it opened. Jin Dae-hyun stood there, dressed more casually now, black pants, white shirt, no tie. He looked unsurprised. You came, he said. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. He stepped aside. But I'm glad you chose this one. She entered slowly, scanning for threats, for signs that she'd made a terrible mistake. The interior was minimalist, elegant, cold, everything in blacks, whites, grays, expensive art on the walls, Korean calligraphy, modern abstracts. The guest house is this way, Jin said, leading her through the main house toward a back exit. They crossed a covered walkway to a smaller structure, a guest house that was larger than most apartments. He unlocked the door, handed her the key. Bedroom upstairs, kitchen stocked, security system monitored, code is the same as the gate. Sarah stepped inside. It was warm, clean, beautiful. She turned to him, confused by his distance. That's it. You're not staying. I don't enter unless invited. This is your space. But you said, the public appearances? We'll start when you're ready. For now, rest, recover, be safe. He handed her another card, this one white, with just a phone number. If you need anything, call, someone will answer. Why are you doing this? The question seemed to pain him. He looked past her into the guest house, but seeing someone else. My younger sister was 18 when she died, he said quietly. She was alone, cold, afraid. I wasn't there to help her. I was too busy with other things. By the time I found her, it was too late. Sarah's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just stay alive. He met her eyes again. That's all I ask. He left before she could respond. Sarah stood in the doorway of her new temporary home, watching him disappear into the main house, wondering what kind of man offered salvation without expecting payment. The kind who's already paid too much, she thought. She closed the door, locked it, leaned against it, and finally, for the first time in months, let herself cry. Not from despair this time, from relief. The first week passed in strange silence. Sarah barely saw Jin. He left before dawn and returned after midnight. Sometimes she'd hear his car in the driveway, see lights flicker on in the main house, then off again. He was a ghost in his own home, present but untouchable. She spent those first days adjusting to the impossibility of her situation, heat that actually worked, a bed with clean sheets, a shower with hot water that didn't run out after 30 seconds, a refrigerator stocked with real food, not ramen, not day-old donuts from work, but fresh vegetables, meat, bread, eggs. She cooked for the first time in years. Simple things, scrambled eggs, rice, soup. She cried while eating them. On the fourth day, she found an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, $2,000 in cash and a note in precise handwriting. For immediate expenses. More available when needed. JD. She stared at the money for an hour before she could bring herself to touch it. On the 8th day, Jin knocked on her door at 2 a.m. She answered in her pajamas, cheap cotton pants and an oversized shirt, hair loose, no makeup. He stood there in his suit, looking exhausted and somehow still perfect, and said, I apologize for the hour. There's a situation. I need you to come with me. What kind of situation? The kind where people need to see you with me. Now, it's 2 a.m. The people I deal with don't keep normal hours. She should have said no, should have locked the door. But something in his expression, a tightness around his eyes, a tension in his jaw, told her this wasn't optional. She got dressed, black jeans, a sweater, boots. The nicest thing she owned, which weren't nice at all. When she emerged, Jin looked at her, then walked to his car without comment. They drove in silence through empty streets, down into Koreatown. He pulled up to a restaurant, closed to the public, but light blazing inside. Men in suits stood outside, smoking. Stay close to me, Jin said. Don't speak unless spoken to. When we leave quickly. Understand? What is this? A negotiation. He got out. She followed. The men outside watched her with undisguised curiosity, speaking Korean too fast for her to catch any words. Jin placed a hand on her lower back, proprietary, protective, and guided her inside. The restaurant had been cleared except for one large table. 6 men sat there, all Korean, all radiating the same dangerous stillness as Jin. At the head of the table sat an older man, maybe 60, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. He spoke in Korean. Jin answered in the same language. Sarah stood slightly behind him, feeling scrutinized, analyzed, appraised. The older man switched to English, his accent thick but clear. So this is the girl who made Jin Daehyun soft. She hasn't made me anything, Jin replied evenly. You protect her. You hide her in your home. You bring her to meetings. The man smiled without warmth. When you should be focused on business, you worry about one American girl sleeping in alleys. My personal life doesn't affect my business. Everything affects business. The older man gestured at Sarah. What's your name, girl? She cleared her throat. Sarah. Sarah. Pretty name. You know what Jin does? Jin's hand pressed slightly harder against her back. A warning. He said, import-export. Sarah answered carefully. The men laughed. Import-export, the older man repeated. Yes, we import loyalty, export consequences. He leaned forward. Jin Dahyun is one of the most efficient operators on the West Coast. He's made me very wealthy, but lately he's been distracted. I've missed no deadlines, Jin said coldly. No, but you've missed opportunities. You've turned down contracts. You've spent time tracking down loan sharks instead of handling territory disputes. The older man's gaze shifted to Sarah. Because of her? Because of my choice, Jin corrected. A choice that makes you vulnerable. I'm not vulnerable. Everyone is vulnerable when they care about something. The older man stood. I like you, Jin. You're smart, disciplined. But sentiment is poison in our world. So, I'll give you advice. Finish your business with this girl, then let her go, before someone uses her to finish you. The threat hung in the air. Jin's voice dropped to something dark and absolute. If anyone touches her, I'll burn their organization to the ground. Silence. Then the older man laughed, genuinely this time. Maybe you're not soft after all. Crazy perhaps, but not soft. He waved his hand. Go. Enjoy your distraction while you can. They left quickly. In the car, Sarah finally exhaled. What the hell was that? A reminder, Jin said. Of what? That everything I've built can collapse the moment I show weakness. And I'm your weakness. He didn't answer. They drove back in tense silence. At the house, Sarah got out, then turned back. You shouldn't have threatened them because of me. I didn't threaten them because of you. I stated fact. Why? I'm nobody. You barely know me. Jin killed the engine, got out, walked around to face her. My sister's name was Ji-hee, he said quietly. She was brilliant, kind. She wanted to be a doctor. When I was 19, I joined the organization to make money for her education. I thought I was helping her, protecting her. His jaw tightened. But a rival gang found out about her, used her to send a message. They left her body in an alley, alone, with a note pinned to her chest. Sarah's breath caught. I found her 3 hours later, Jin continued. 3 hours. If I'd been there sooner, if I'd checked on her instead of handling business, she might have lived. I swore I'd never let that happen again, that I'd never ignore someone suffering when I could help. I'm not your sister. No, he agreed. But you were alone, cold, hunted, and I could stop it. So I did. He turned to walk away. Jin, Sarah called. He paused. Thank you. He nodded once, then disappeared into the main house. Sarah stood in the driveway, understanding finally settling over her like snow. Jin Dahyun wasn't keeping her to use her. He was keeping her because he couldn't not keep her, because his guilt demanded it, because his grief had become a religion, and she was his penance. She went inside, but sleep wouldn't come. So she did what she always did when her mind wouldn't rest. She cooked. At 3 a.m., she made kimchi fried rice from the ingredients in the kitchen, following a recipe from memory, something her mother used to make when times were hard. At 3:30, Jin knocked on her door. I smelled food, he said simply. She let him in. They sat at her kitchen counter, eating in silence at first. Then Jin said, This is good. My mom's recipe. Sort of. I adjusted it. She taught you to cook. She taught me everything. Sarah smiled sadly. She ran a restaurant for 15 years. Nothing fancy, just comfort food. But people loved it. She loved it. What happened? Cancer, medical bills, bankruptcy, the American dream in reverse. And yet you want to rebuild it. She looked up sharply. How do you know that? You carry a lease agreement from the old location in your backpack. You research commercial properties when you use the library computer. You still have her recipes. You're watching me. I'm seeing you, he said again. There's a difference. They finished eating. Jin stood to leave, then paused. If you want it back, the restaurant, I can make it happen. Why would you do that? Because you deserve it. Because your mother deserved better. Because... He hesitated. Because I understand what it's like to fail someone you love. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire demeanor shifted. Harder, colder. Stay inside tonight. Don't answer the door. What's wrong? Marcus has been asking questions. He knows you're gone. He's looking. Fear spiked through her. Will he find me? Jin met her eyes. Not while I'm breathing. He left. Sarah locked the door, then went to the window and watched the main house. Lights on, shadows moving, men arriving, Jin's silent companions from before, plus others. They were preparing for something. She realized with sudden clarity. Jin Dae-hyun might have saved her from the street, but he'd also pulled her into his world, a world where violence waited in the margins, where protection came with a price she hadn't yet been asked to pay. She touched the window glass, watching Jin move through his house with the precision of a man always expecting war. And she wondered, which was more dangerous, the devil hunting her from her past, or the angel protecting her in the present? Marcus didn't just come back. He brought hell with him. It started small, a black SUV circling the neighborhood, a stranger asking questions at Ming's diner about a girl named Sarah Mitchell, security footage from the 7-Eleven showing someone scanning the streets. Jin's men reported everything. He's working with Tommy Vega now, one of Jin's lieutenants told him. They're pooling resources to find her. Jin stood in his office, looking out at the city lights. Tommy knows better than to hunt on my territory. Maybe he doesn't know she's under your protection. Then make sure he knows. But knowing didn't stop them. 3 days later, Sarah was grocery shopping, escorted by one of Jin's men, a quiet Korean-American named David, who stayed 5 feet behind her at all times. When she saw Marcus, he was across the street, leaning against a car, watching. When their eyes met, he smiled. Sarah's blood turned cold. "David," she whispered. "I see him." David moved closer, hand inside his jacket. "Keep walking." They made it to the car. David drove fast, checking mirrors constantly. "He knows where I live now," Sarah said, voice shaking. "He knows the neighborhood, not the address. There's a difference." But the damage was done. The sanctuary had been breached. That night, Jin came to her door earlier than usual. Barely 10 p.m. "Pack a bag," he said without preamble. "What?" "You're moving. Tonight. The guest house isn't secure enough." "Moving where?" "The main house. With me." Her heart lurched. "Jin, I can't. This isn't negotiable." His voice was firm but not unkind. "Marcus knows this area. He'll escalate. He'll watch, wait, find a gap in security. I need you closer. Where I can respond immediately if something happens." "You mean where you can control me?" "I mean where I can keep you alive." She wanted to argue, but the fear from seeing Marcus, the visceral terror of being hunted, overrode her pride. She packed. The main house was different from the guest house. Larger, yes, but also more personal. Photos on the walls. Jin as a teenager with a younger girl who must have been Jihi. His parents, stern and formal. Jin in a university graduation gown. He showed her to a guest room on the 2nd floor. "My room is down the hall. Security office is on the 1st floor, always manned. Panic button by the bed. Press it, and 5 people will be here in under a minute." "You're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." He started to leave. "Jin," she called. "Why is Marcus so obsessed with finding me? The debt, it's only 60,000. That's nothing to people like Tommy Vega, right?" Jin turned back, his expression dark. "It's not about the money anymore. It's about ego. You embarrassed Marcus by disappearing. You made him look weak. In his world, that's unforgivable." He paused. "And now that you're with me, I've made him look weaker. So this is personal for him. He won't stop until he's hurt you, made an example of you. Then I should leave. I'm putting you in danger." "You're not putting me anywhere I haven't already been." His voice softened slightly. "I chose this, Sarah. I choose it every day." He left before she could respond. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound seemed amplified, the house settling, wind against windows, a car passing on the distant street. At 2 a.m., she heard shouting. Sarah ran to the window. Below, in the circular driveway, Jin stood facing 4 men she didn't recognize. His own men flanked him, hands near concealed weapons. The strangers were Korean-American, dressed in expensive casual wear, radiating aggression. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read the body language. Threat, counter-threat, escalation. Then one of the strangers pulled a gun. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. stifling a scream. Jin didn't flinch. He said something, calm and cold, and his men moved, not drawing weapons, just shifting position, creating a tactical formation. The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Then the strangers lowered the gun, got back in their car, and drove away. Jin watched them go, then looked up, directly at her window. Even from that distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the coiled violence held in check. He came upstairs minutes later, knocked softly on her door. She opened it. What was that? A message from Tommy Vega. He wants me to hand you over. Maybe you should. No. Jin, this is insane. They had guns. They could have, but they didn't. He stepped closer. They won't, because Tommy knows if he spills blood on my property, I'll retaliate. This is theater, posturing, testing boundaries. What happens when the testing stops? His jaw tightened. Then we'll handle it. How? He didn't answer. Just looked at her with those dark, fathomless eyes that held too many secrets. You should sleep, he said finally. I can't. Not after that. He hesitated. Then, would it help if I stayed? Not in your room, he added quickly, but nearby. So you know someone's watching. The offer was so unexpectedly gentle that Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Jin nodded. He went to his room, returned with a blanket and pillow, and settled into the armchair in the hallway outside her door. Try to rest, he said. She closed the door most of the way. Not locked, just ajar, and climbed into bed. Knowing he was there, just beyond the door, she finally slept. But the next morning brought worse news. David came to the house at dawn, face grim. We have a problem. Jin met him in the security office. Sarah followed, ignoring Jin's gesture for her to stay upstairs. David pulled up security footage on a laptop. This was taken last night at Ming's diner. The video showed Marcus and 3 other men entering the diner. They questioned staff, threatened the night manager, showed a photo of Sarah and Jin leaving the Korean restaurant together. They know you're together, David said, and now they're spreading it. Tommy Vega's people, the other crews, everyone knows Jin Dae-hyun is protecting an American girl. It's making you look weak. I don't care how it looks. You should. The organization is questioning your judgment. They think you're compromised. Then they can question all they want. Jin. David's voice dropped. There's talk of removing you, replacing you with someone more focused. Sarah's stomach dropped. And this is because of me. This is because of cowards who mistake mercy for weakness, Jin said coldly. What are we going to do? Sarah asked. Jin looked at her for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. We're going to end this. Permanently. How? By giving Tommy Vega exactly what he wants. Sarah's blood went cold. You're going to hand me over. No. Jin's smile was sharp and utterly without humor. I'm going to let him think I'm handing you over. And when he comes to collect, I'm going to destroy him. The plan was simple, elegant, and absolutely terrifying. Jin would send word through intermediaries that he was tired of the conflict, that Sarah Mitchell had become more trouble than she was worth, that he'd meet Tommy Vega at a neutral location to transfer custody. The meeting would take place at an abandoned warehouse in the port of Los Angeles, industrial, isolated, away from civilian witnesses. Tommy would come expecting an easy victory. He'd leave in handcuffs, courtesy of FBI agents Jin had been cultivating for exactly this purpose. Tommy Vega has 14 outstanding warrants, Jin explained. Drug trafficking, racketeering, assault. The FBI wants him, but he's slippery, always uses intermediaries. Never gets his hands dirty. He looked at Sarah. But if he believes he's won, if he thinks he's collecting you personally, he'll come himself, and we'll have him. And if something goes wrong, Sarah asked, then I get you out first, consequences second. That's not a plan. That's suicide. Jin's expression was calm. I've been preparing for this my entire adult life. Tommy Vega is small time compared to what I've survived. But why? Why risk everything for me? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you deserve more than to be hunted, because your mother's legacy deserves to be honored, because... He met her eyes. Because I've spent 10 years trying to atone for Jihee's death, and saving you is the closest I've come to forgiveness. I'm not your redemption, Jin. No, but maybe you're my second chance. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Sarah made a decision then. I want to help. Absolutely not. Jin, listen to me. If I'm just a victim you hand over, Tommy might suspect a trap. But if I'm an active participant, if I call him myself, beg him to meet me, say I escaped from you, it's more believable. No. Why not? Because if anything goes wrong, you'll be the first person he hurts. And if we do nothing, he'll hurt me anyway. Her voice rose. At least this way, I have some control, some agency. I'm tired of being the helpless girl everyone protects. Let me fight back. Jin looked torn, caught between his need to protect and his recognition of her autonomy. Finally, he said, If you do this, you follow my instructions exactly. No improvisation, no heroics. You understand. I understand. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no looking back. Jin, promise me, Sarah. She swallowed hard. I promise. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Jin walked her through the plan 50 times, showed her maps of the warehouse, escape routes, where his men would be positioned. He gave her a phone, clean, untraceable. When you call Tommy, use this. Tell him you stole it from me. Tell him you're scared, desperate, willing to do anything. What if he doesn't believe me? He'll believe you. Because he wants to. The night before the meeting, Sarah couldn't eat. She sat in Jin's kitchen, staring at her mother's recipe book, trying to find comfort in the familiar handwriting. Jin found her there at midnight. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I do. Why? She looked up at him. Because you've been alone for 10 years, carrying guilt that isn't yours. Because you saved me when no one else would. Because... She hesitated. Because somewhere between the guest house and here, between fear and safety, I started to care about you. And I can't let you destroy yourself trying to save me. Jin sat down across from her. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked vulnerable, uncertain. I don't know how to care about someone without losing them, he admitted. Then we'll figure it out together. He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. If anything happens tomorrow, nothing will happen. But if it does, I need you to know. You're not a burden. You're not my penance. He struggled to find words. You're the first thing I've wanted to protect for reasons that have nothing to do with guilt. Sarah's throat tightened. What reasons? Because you're brave. Because you cook at 3 a.m. when you're anxious. Because you've survived things that should have broken you, and instead of becoming bitter, you became strong. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Because when I look at you, I don't see Jai. I see Sarah. And that matters. She stood, walked around the table, and did something that surprised both of them. She kissed him. It was brief, chaste, but it held everything they hadn't said. Fear, hope, longing, trust. When she pulled back, Jin looked at her with something close to wonder. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we end this, and then we start something new. Promise. I promise. But promises, Sarah had learned, were fragile things, and tomorrow would test just how much they could withstand. The warehouse smelled like rust and ocean salt. Sarah stood in the center of the vast empty space, surrounded by shipping containers and shadows, her heart trying to hammer through her ribs. Jin was close. She knew that. His men were positioned in the rafters, behind containers, in the office overlooking the floor, invisible but present. FBI agents waited in unmarked vans 2 blocks away, ready to move on Jin's signal. Everything was planned, controlled, safe. So why did Sarah feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff? The warehouse door opened. Tommy Vega entered, flanked by 6 men. He was smaller than she'd imagined, maybe 5'7", stocky, with slicked back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. Marcus walked beside him, looking triumphant. Sarah Mitchell, Tommy called out, his voice echoing. The girl who's caused so much trouble. Sarah forced herself to stand still. I just want this to be over. Oh, it will be. one way or another. Tommy approached, hands in his pockets. Casual. Where's your boyfriend? Jin Dae-hyun. He's not my boyfriend. He's... She let her voice crack. He's done with me, said I was too much trouble. He gave me 1 hour to disappear before he called people like you to collect. Smart man. Finally came to his senses. Tommy circled her slowly. You know what you owe me, Sarah? $60,000. Wrong. You owe me respect. You owe me compensation for the time I've wasted chasing you. You owe me an example to set for others who think they can run from their debts. I'll pay. I'll work. Whatever you want. Whatever I want? Tommy laughed. You hear that, Marcus? She'll do whatever I want. Marcus stepped forward, eyes gleaming. I told you she'd break eventually. Sarah's skin crawled, but she held her ground. Where do you want me to go? Not so fast. First, we make sure this isn't a trap. Tommy gestured, and 2 of his men moved forward to search her. They found the phone Jin had given her, as planned. GPS disabled, one of them confirmed. Tommy nodded, satisfied. Good girl. Now you're under arrest. The voice came from above. Jin stepped into view on the catwalk overlooking the warehouse floor, flanked by his men. At the same moment, the FBI vans roared into the warehouse, agents pouring out with weapons drawn. FBI, on the ground, now! Tommy's face twisted with rage and realization. You set me up. I gave you a choice, Jin said coldly. Leave her alone. You chose wrong. Tommy's men went for their weapons. What happened next occurred in seconds but felt like hours. Marcus grabbed Sarah, arm around her throat, gun to her temple. Nobody move! Jin's weapon appeared in his hand, aimed at Marcus. Let her go. Back off or I kill her. Sarah couldn't breathe. The gun barrel pressed cold against her skin. Marcus's arm crushed her windpipe. Jin's eyes locked with hers. Stay calm, that look said. Trust me. Marcus, Jin said, voice steady. You're surrounded. FBI has snipers. My men have clean shots. There's no scenario where you leave here alive if you hurt her. Then I'll die taking her with me. Why? She never hurt you? You hurt her. You stole from her. Abandoned her. And now you want to kill her because you're embarrassed. Jin lowered his weapon slightly. Unthreatening. Just talking. You were in love with her once. I saw the photos. The 2 of you smiling. Happy. That man wouldn't do this. That man was weak. That man was human. And you can be again. Let her go, Marcus. Walk away from Tommy. Cooperate with the FBI. Get a lawyer. You'll do time, but you'll live. You can rebuild. But if you pull that trigger, you die here. Tonight. And for what? Pride. Marcus's grip wavered. There's still a way back. Jin continued softly. Still a chance to be someone your younger self wouldn't be ashamed of. She ruined my life. You ruined your own life. She just refused to let you ruin hers too. For a moment, nothing moved. The entire warehouse held its breath. Then Marcus's arm loosened. Sarah wrenched free, stumbling forward. Jin caught her, pulled her behind him, his body a shield. FBI agents swarmed Marcus, dragging him to the ground. Tommy Vega tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Jin's men cut off his escape. Thomas Vega, an FBI agent announced, "You're under arrest for drug trafficking, racketeering, money laundering." The list went on. Tommy spat at Jin's feet as they cuffed him. "You're dead. You hear me? Dead!" Jin didn't respond. He just held Sarah, checking her for injuries, his hands shaking slightly, the only sign of how scared he'd been. "You're okay," he murmured. "You're okay. I'm okay," she whispered back. But her legs gave out, adrenaline crash hitting hard. Jin caught her, lifted her, carried her out of the warehouse into the cool night air. Behind them, FBI agents processed the scene. Jin's men melted into the shadows, their work done. Jin set Sarah down next to his Mercedes, hands framing her face. "You were so brave, so perfect. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's over. It's over." She started crying then. Great heaving sobs of relief, terror, exhaustion. Jin pulled her close, let her fall apart against his chest. "I have you," he said quietly. "I have you, and I'm not letting go. When she finally calmed, he tilted her chin up. Sarah, yeah, I lied earlier. About what you are to me. Her heart stuttered. What do you mean? You're not my second chance. His thumb brushed away her tears. You're my first choice. The first thing I've wanted for myself, not to atone for GA, not to ease guilt, but because you make me want to be more than what I've been. Jin, I love you. I didn't plan to, I didn't want to, but I do. And if you don't feel the same, I'll understand. But I needed you to know. She kissed him, different from before, longer, deeper, full of everything they'd survived and everything they wanted to survive together. When they broke apart, she whispered, I love you too. Even though you're terrifying, even though your world is violent and dangerous, even though this is completely insane. He smiled, genuinely smiled, and it transformed his face. Completely insane. So what do we do now? Now? Jin looked back at the warehouse, where his old life was being processed and documented. Then he looked at Sarah, his new life standing in front of him. Now we build something worth protecting. 4 years later, Mitchell's kitchen opened on a Saturday morning in March, and the line wrapped around the block before the doors even unlocked. Sarah stood inside, wearing a white apron embroidered with her mother's name, looking at the space she'd rebuilt from memory and love. The original location had been demolished, but Jin had purchased a building 2 blocks away. Better space, better equipment, better everything. The walls were painted warm cream. Vintage photos hung in frames, her mother cooking, smiling, living. Korean art pieces, gifts from Jin, complemented the Americana, blending their worlds. The menu was her mother's recipes, plus a few Korean dishes Jin had taught her to make. Fusion before it was trendy. Comfort before it was a marketing term. Ready? Jin asked, coming up behind her, hands resting on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant. A girl, according to the ultrasound. They'd already chosen a name, Jihi Mitchell Dae-hyun. Ready? Sarah confirmed. He unlocked the door. The rush was immediate. Neighbors. Old customers who remembered her mother. New faces curious about the hype. They filled the tables, the counter seats, the waiting area. Sarah cooked. Jin ran the front, charming, efficient, perfectly suited to hospitality despite his dark past. That past had changed, not disappeared. Jin was still connected to the organization, but evolved. After Tommy Vega's arrest, Jin had leveraged his cooperation with the FBI into immunity and a new role, consultant on organized crime prevention. He still ran security operations, but now they were legitimate. Private protection for Korean-American businesses, threat assessment, risk management. He'd become the bridge between 2 worlds, and Sarah had become his anchor. During the lunch rush, David, no longer a bodyguard but their restaurant manager, brought her water. Table 6 wants to meet the chef. Sarah wiped her hands, walked out to the dining room. An elderly Korean couple smiled up at her. We knew your mother, the woman said in accented English. She made the best pot roast in Los Angeles. We're so happy to see you carrying on her legacy. Sarah's throat tightened. Thank you, that means everything. And your husband, the man added, glancing at Jin, is a good man. We know his family, know what he's survived. He's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one, Sarah said honestly. That evening, after closing, Sarah and Jin sat in the empty restaurant, feet aching, hearts full. Your mother would be proud, Jin said softly. I think she'd like you too. Once she got over the whole Mafia thing, he laughed. Former Mafia. Reformed Mafia. Let's go with a changed man. Sarah leaned against him. Do you ever regret it, leaving that life behind? Jin was quiet for a moment. I don't regret leaving. I regret that I needed to be there in the first place. That I thought power and violence were the only ways to matter. He kissed her temple. But if I hadn't walked that path, I wouldn't have been in that alley the night I found you. So maybe everything, all the pain, all the mistakes, was leading me to you. That's very poetic for a former crime boss. I contain multitudes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching through the window as Los Angeles carried on, cars passing, people walking, the city breathing. Sarah thought about that night 4 years ago, the cardboard shelter, the cold, the hopelessness. Marcus's hand on her wrist. Jin's voice cutting through the darkness. Let her go. Everything had changed because one man chose mercy over indifference, and because she chose trust over fear. Sarah, Jin said suddenly. Thank you. For what? For giving me a reason to be better. For believing I could be more than my worst choices. For loving me despite knowing exactly who I was. She took his hand, placed it over her belly where their daughter moved. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. For protecting me when I had nothing. For showing me that even broken people can build something whole. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. They both laughed. Outside, Los Angeles glowed with 10 million stories. Tragedy and triumph, loss and redemption, endings and beginnings all layered on top of each other. And inside Mitchell's kitchen, two people who had survived the worst found peace in the best. Love built from ashes, family chosen from strangers, a future written by people who refused to let their past define them. Sarah looked at the empty restaurant, at the tables where people had eaten and laughed today, at the kitchen where her mother's recipes lived again, at the window where Jin stood guard even now, always watching, always protecting. This was the miracle. Not that they'd survived, but that they'd survived together. And that was worth every terrifying moment that brought them here. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. And click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.